Get your earballs ready. Welcome to the Gregg and Tim Show podcast. Take time to sit back and relax and enjoy the show. Here are your hosts, Gregg and Tim.
Hey, welcome back to the Gregg and Tim Show. We have a special guest today. Tim, do you know our special guest?
Yeah, Lorne Korol is beside us. He is the chaplain of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the Winnipeg Jets as well, and we're happy to have him in the studio. Welcome here.
Welcome, Lorne.
It's an honor and a blessing to be here. I'm really excited about this.
We're pumped. We're excited to get to talk to you about something that we have some, I guess, skin in the game in. Like we appreciate what you do with the Jets and with the Bombers and all that kind of stuff. But first of all, how's your week going?
It's been great. You know, Bombers are in training camp now. We had rookie camp last year, training camp now. So I find it a really fascinating time because there's just the volume of players right now.
Yeah.
So you're trying to meet some new guys and, reacquaint yourself with the guys from last year. And I love training camp that way. It's really good. And I always talk about the amount of touches that you make when you go there, and you never know what God's got in store for you, right? Like somebody's injured and he needs prayer, or someone gets released from the team and needs prayer. So it's a hard time for the players, but it's an important time for us as chaplains to be there to support them.
This is like it's like the first day of school. For some of these guys, right? Like some of them don't know each other, some of them are new to the team, that type of thing, right? So how do you kind of introduce yourself to them? Like what's your introduction?
Well, I was introduced to the team on Saturday with the rest of our support staff.
Okay.
So they introduce everybody from our president to our general manager to our football ops manager to the training staff and support staff, and somewhere way down the list they get to the chaplain, and I get 2 minutes to tell them what I do. And
you get the biggest cheer though, right?
Yeah, I wish I did. At that point they've been in gazillion meetings, and they're just, when is this whole circus going to end, right? But in all seriousness, though, I like to tell them the optional chapel services that we have, and also to let them know that whether you come to chapel or not, that real life gets in the way of pro sports. Yeah. And so I'm there for everybody, just in case someone's got someone at home that's sick or got a relationship that's got problems. And, sadly, in the last 10 years, I've done 7 funerals for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers organization. So it's so I want to let them know that there's someone there to support them, because, they're high performance athletes. Yeah. They know what they need to do on the field. They know what to do in the film room and in the gym. But then, in a blink of an eye, something happens and it's hard. A
lot of them are away from home too, right?
Absolutely.
Like they're not with their parents, they're not with their home churches and that type of thing too, right? So you're kind of like a foster church to them, I would assume, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I would suspect probably some differences between someone who plays for the Blue Bombers, or someone in camp anyways, versus somebody who plays for the Jets. Because if you're let's say you're an NHL player, you're probably in that high a league and you're going to stay there for a long time. So I assume someone that plays for the Bombers, they play in the CFL, and there's more transition there. Yeah. A lot of them might play for a year, 2, maybe not even, and then they go on to regular jobs, right? So they may not have a full-time profession for years and years and years. Do you find that you stay in touch with everyone that you touch base with, whether it's a week, a day, 7 years?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to, like I just mentioned earlier, and when we were just talking before, I try and stay in touch with some players, like Jack Roslovic is now with the New York Rangers, and just a little text here and there, wish them a happy birthday, or just seeing how they're doing or whatever. And but you try, but there's just so many guys over the years that you try and stay in touch with. Part of the way I stay in touch with them is that Rick Warren's got a great daily devotional called Daily Hope.
Okay.
And I send it out. Truth be known, my wife sends it out because she gets up way earlier than me.
Give her the credit.
She sends it out to, I think we have about 235 guys that get this daily devotional. Okay. Over the years, we just keep on. It's just been building. God's been doing a thing, and they can. I always say to them, you can just hit delete or whatever. But if they dig in a little bit, it's just something more that they can, a little more spiritual food for them. Yeah. So that's a way to connect with them, because every so often a guy will text me and and say, hey, I keep sending those devotionals, or say, hey, how you doing, or whatever. So it's hard to keep in touch with that many guys over the years, but I try my best. And but yeah,
that's pretty cool that that you stay in touch with them and keep that aspect of your relationship still out there. Did you meet that new kid in camp? I think he goes by like Milt something.
Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah, well, great story about that guy, Milt Stiegel. Like when my rookie year with the Bombers, I guess when I was my first year as chaplain there, Milt was in his last year. And he was in his record-breaking year, but he was also my chapel leader. So we have a chapel leader for every team, like a player rep. What a blessing to have him, because when you're a rookie, just like a rookie in anything, right? Your first year, you don't know where to go, what to stand, what to do, what to say.
Yeah.
And Milt was there to just walk me along, and he's a GOAT, right? He's one of the greatest of all time.
Oh, for sure.
And he's a preacher without being a preacher, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. And he is a strong man of God, and so having him there, and we've stayed in touch over the years. In fact, he's still involved with our ministry, and having him at camp was just, it warmed my heart. And but he was good. Like he didn't
he looked
disappoint.
fast still.
Yeah. So they run this thing. It's called the 300s, and all the guys on the team know about they all go through the 300s.
Okay.
And what it is, you just start at the goal line and you go to the 25-yard line and back 5 times.
Okay.
And every position group runs it together. So Milt ran the 300s with the receivers. So you're talking all these young receivers. There's 15 of them in rookie camp.
Like 21 years old.
21 years old. He came 5th out of 15. At
really?
At 54 years old, like I thought,
that's pretty good.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And and then he's hardly breaking a sweat. It seems like he's he went through the drills, and he caught a couple of passes, and
people cheered.
Oh yeah, they cheered everything he did. Like he'd stretch, they'd cheer. Like anything.
Would you have any time next week if Gregg wanted to do the same drills?
Yeah, we can put you through the 3.
Yeah, if you can get in touch with somebody, that would be great.
We could do the 300. So how long do you want the podcast to be? About 3.5, 4 hours?
Yeah, that'd be like me if I had to run a 300. I'm good at watching that 300, but yeah,
it's like oh man, Lorraine would know better, but CrossFit mascot, what was it back in your day?
Their saying was, "Your workout is our warm-up."
Yeah, so
oh really, eh?
Your workout is
our warm-up.
Is our warm-up. And like I could see Milt living that.
Oh yeah.
Right?
That's a great line, because that would be Milt Stiegel. Like he trains, and he always says cute in the face, thin in the waist, and he's still cute in the face, thin in the waist, right? And
he's not shy of any charisma or
he's got to look good in the camera now, right?
Oh yeah.
He's a TV personality.
Yeah. So he did really good. It was really good. And I texted him before, the night before, praying for you, shine your light, and because he's a strong Christian, right? And I think he did a great job of that too, and use it as a platform for an audience of one. And so it was good.
That's fantastic. We always get into the show too far, and we forget to ask the first question.
Well, by definition, there is no first question. The other questions were the first questions.
The other questions were the first questions. This is the non-first question, I guess. This is always like the 6th question.
It's still question number 4.
It's question number 4 of the day. We know people are going to get to know you as being the chaplain. People that don't know you as a chaplain already will know that you are chaplain of the Jets, chaplain of the Moose, of the Blue Bombers. You've worked with multiple organizations. But aside from what you are as a professional, who is Lorne Korol?
Well, it's funny. We just had an exercise on our Athletes in Action town hall call today, where we got paired up with somebody on a Zoom call from another part of the country, and we had in 3 minutes we had to answer who we are without using our role or our title. And,
so you practiced this already?
So it's like I was practicing for this. So I would say I'm a child of God. I'm a loving husband, a loving father. I love the Lord. I love sports. My wife would probably tell you I'm addicted to sports.
Okay.
I consume a lot of sports. I watch probably way too much sports. And
I think there's worse addictions out there than that.
And but I'm blessed that I can use my love for sports as a platform to honor and glorify God.
Yep.
And that would be how I would define myself. And I just like I just think you mentioned Milt, like I just try to live each day as you don't know how many we have, and Milt would always open up in prayer. Thank you, Lord, for today. Today you gave us. You didn't promise it to us, but you gave it to us anyways. And, just trying to live that way is important, and live for the Lord.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I read that you have a really awesome story about how you came to know the Lord Jesus at the age of 35 or 36. And I think it had something to do with Kelly Gruber, who was the third baseman for the Blue Jays in that day. Could you tell us a little bit about that transformation before and after the age of 35, and how did Kelly Gruber be part of that story?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, I grew up as a baseball player. I played football, hockey, and baseball, but I excelled at baseball more than the others. And, I had a good career, made Team Manitoba, wasn't good enough for Team Canada, but I just went through the system. And when I graduated from Recreation Studies Sport Administration, one of the jobs I had was as a summer student was with Manitoba Baseball. And, with Manitoba Baseball, they had different roles, and I was serving as their technical director. And we had an exhibition game in Manitoba where the Blue Jays came in to play against our National Baseball Institute at the old Winnipeg Stadium.
I was actually there in 1986.
That's right.
You were there?
I was at that game.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, I was at that game. I remember, it's terrible sightlines that you can imagine
yeah,
the stadium, the
very
old
bad
stadium.
sightlines, yeah.
But the Jays were there. I think they didn't want to be there. I doubt to be in Winnipeg at that time.
I still lived in Thompson at that time.
No,
I was very young. So
I was at the game. Sorry to interrupt, but I was at that game. Remember it like this was yesterday.
But you set it up perfectly because the Jays really didn't want to be there.
Okay.
Like I don't know if you know, but in Major League Baseball, they get very few days off. And not that they didn't like Winnipeg, and not that they didn't like Team Canada, but they get so few off days, and they get scheduled this game to play in this stadium that's basically a shoehorn. They shoehorn a baseball park into the stadium. Left field is like a bandbox there in left field. Cecil Field, were sitting bombs into the upper deck that day, and so they really don't want to be there, and we're excited. The Blue Jays are coming. The National Baseball Institute, they're playing against them, and my role as one of the Manitoba baseball staff was to be kind of a gopher for the Blue Jays for their dugout. So I had my little blazer on, my little Manitoba baseball blazer on, and the guys are walking by me like I didn't even exist. Like they're big leaguing me, right? And I'm like, there goes another guy. Oh yeah, there's another guy. Like they don't even care that I'm there. And can I help you? No. Can I help? No. They just keep walking. I realized they really don't want to be there. But this one guy, like he really took some interest in me. Like, his name was Kelly Gruber, and he was asking me like what does NBA stand for? Well, that's Manitoba Baseball Association. Like, where did you play? What is your role, and all these things. And finally, he asked me, "Would you like an autograph?" And I said, "Well, sure, that would be awesome." And so
Kelly Gruber,
and then he says, "Would you like an autograph from the whole team?" I said, "Well, that'd be even better." So he goes away, and he comes back, later on, during the game with this completely autographed baseball. And so I didn't think too much of it then. And, I'm doing my thing there, doing my role. Later on, after the game, I look and I see Kelly. I'm looking for his name, right? Kelly Gruber, room 109. And I thought, was that why he was being so nice to me? Was he inviting me back to his room? And I thought, so I didn't know what to make of this. So I go home. My mom says, "You dummy, that's Rom 10:9. If you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you shall be saved."
Yeah.
He was putting a verse on your baseball, and you were thinking it was room 109.
Didn't spell it right.
No. So
it's like LAF.
Yeah. So, but it was interesting though, because I'm so blessed that we have a patient God, because it took 13 years for that seed to germinate.
So how old were you at that time?
Well, I would have been 35 minus 28, so whatever that would make me out to be. And so so I was just like in my 20s, early 20s there with Manitoba baseball, and my off-field activities were getting me into trouble.
Okay.
So the thing was, as a player, you come up and you go through the system, and you play hard on the field, you play hard off the field.
Yeah.
growing up, I grew up in a Catholic background, but basically as soon as I got old enough to not go to church, I would be like what I would call a CEO Catholic, Christmas and Easter only.
Yeah.
And
I've never heard that
yeah.
before.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And,
Okay.
and so, and really, I got myself into trouble off the field. I went through divorce. I had a DUI, and different things were going sideways in my life. And I knew that I wasn't headed in the right direction until a friend of mine, he introduced me to the meeting place where I go to church now. And he invited me to come there, and walked in there and had a guy named John Buller who's playing. You may have heard of John.
Yeah, me and John.
Who's doing praise and worship, and he's wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and he's playing like a U2 song, and everybody in there is wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and it's a pretty cool place. This doesn't feel anything like a Catholic church.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm, in a bar or something. And just shortly thereafter, I gave my life to the Lord, and it was the greatest thing that I ever did. And I give full credit to my friend Rob Oliphant, who was the one who led me to the Lord. And he's still one of my best friends. We're in a couple small group together.
Okay.
But that story with Kelly was, and I tell that story when I give my testimony places. If we're at a camp or something, a kid should ever ask a chaplain for an autograph, I sign a Lorne Korol Rom 10-9.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just what and
So have you met Kelly Gruber since?
no, I haven't met him since.
No?
I wish I could, because it's funny, because then even before, now, then after I became a Christian, and I play a little bit of senior baseball, I'd put Rom 10-9 on my glove. On my ball caps, I have Rom 10-9 underneath the thing. When I was coaching Team Manitoba, my fungo bat that I would hit ground balls with, you put tape on a fungo bat in a hitting area. I put Rom 10-9, and so I'm hitting ground balls, and you can't really preach when you're coaching Team Manitoba, but you're hitting ground balls, and the kid that's shagging the balls for you is saying, "What's that? What does that mean?" And hit another one. It's just it's a Bible verse. What does it mean? Well, it talks about salvation. Maybe I'll tell you another time, and whatever. He keep asking me questions about it or whatever, and it's just openings for us to be able to share the gospel.
Yeah.
And so that's the story with Kelly Gruber. It was definitely a unique way for me, but we never know how we're gonna impact somebody, and we talk about wondering questions. We had sort of this long answer on this. We had a guy come in and do some training with us before the 2010 Olympics for athletes in action, and his name was Pollock, was his last name. And I can't recall his first name right now, but he did some phenomenal work about us asking wondering questions, getting to know people, getting to find out more about them before they have to be willing to trust us before we're going to be able to, ask them give them any information about Christ. And we got sent into the Olympic Village, not the Athletes Village, but Olympic Village, and we were assigned to go and ask wondering questions, and then see if we would lead anybody to Christ. And it was quite an exercise, but it was difficult, because it wasn't an easy assignment. But what it did do was it made us understand that people aren't disarmed right away. Yeah. And it allowed us to understand that. So now in my profession, I realize that, players, they need to get to know me. They're, people have to, like the late, great Jack Donahue once said, people have to know that you care before they'll care about what you know. And so if we want them to get to know about Jesus, we have to get them to know that we care about them. That's why training camp's so hard right now, right? I got 110 guys there.
Yeah.
I'm saying
how
hi.
You care for all of them.
Yeah, you're saying hi to them after practice, shaking their hand, whatever, right? But until you maybe get them into a Bible study setting or something, then
you talk about wondering questions. Gregg talks about the why. He's always trying to ask questions to see what's your why, and that's kind of why he asks our guest, who is Lorne Korol, who is somebody else, because he's trying to figure out, or we're trying to figure out the why behind what you do, and you have a very clear why behind what you do.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. We can really hear that from your answers.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the second question then that we always ask each one of our guests is, what is something we don't know about Lorne Korol that hasn't been said out there that you think, you're the chaplain, you deal with a lot of players, that type of thing. What is something that we may not know about you?
Yeah, well, I kind of alluded to it a little bit. People probably don't know that I served as a technical director for Baseball Canada in the 90s. And it was a real learning experience, and it was a great experience. Like, you got to remember this too. Blue Jays won the World Series in 92, 93. I was working there at the time, so we were working with the Blue Jays and the Expos. I always joke, I say that one of the toughest parts of my job was saying no to people that wanted Blue Jays tickets when they'd come to town.
Yeah.
They'd come to Ottawa, and they're asking a guy from Ottawa for tickets in Toronto.
Yeah.
And they were selling out every game. And so I'd say, unless you're my mom and dad, you're probably not going to get tickets, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to
Now
try to
you
pull a
probably
string.
get bugged for Bomber tickets.
A little bit I guess, for different teams and
Scratch
stuff.
that question off your list.
Yeah.
Just gonna
Ask them for those.
Yeah.
Ask them for the Bomber tickets.
Okay,
The Jets are already
continue.
done. So.
But yeah, that'd be something that people probably wouldn't know about. That's right. People wouldn't know about me. It would be my baseball background, like say working in Baseball Canada, but that led into, not immediately, but after I gave my life to the Lord. This is kind of a offshoot of that. I gave my life to the Lord, and I'm at a Moose game back at the old arena, and they have a display set up, and they've got the different cards for different athletes, and I'm walking around, and I see a couple of guys from Athletes in Action at this booth, and I said, "So what is this Athletes in Action?" I had no idea what they were even talking about, and I said, "There's Christian Athletes Group." I said, "Oh man, I want to learn more about that." Well, I shouldn't have been so eager, because I get a call a couple weeks later and says, "Hey, we'd like you to come and think about being the chaplain for the Winnipeg Goldeyes." I said, "Hey, hold the phone here. I just became a believer recently." And I said, I'm not ready for that. But they took me under their wing, and they mentored me for 2-3 years. And I went on and did the Goldeyes for 8 years as a volunteer before I did this role full time.
So how did that, backtrack, how did that transition happen that you were asked that question?
That's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Because I assume from the Goldeyes, you went to Goldeyes Bombers, then Jets, if I'm not correct.
Goldeyes, I was doing the Goldeyes Bombers and Moose at the same time. But then I found it was just too much to have two summer sports going at the same time. So, but when I first started, I was working full time in sport administration, and so I was volunteering with the Goldeyes on the weekends.
Right.
And
so to become a chaplain of a sports team, how does that? Like, do you think that that's just something that came into your life because it was the right time to come into your life? Do you think that was something that like God put there for you as a test? Like, how do you look at that? Because that to me, that blows my mind that they would just go, "Hey, do you want to do this?"
Yeah, I don't think they were being flippant, but the fact that they needed somebody. So like, obviously there was I would say it's no such thing as a coincidence, like a God incidence, and they needed someone, and Dave Johns, who turned out to end up being my mentor after that, he was working with the Goldeyes at that time doing it because they were trying to find somebody, and so then, when they heard about my baseball background, they said, "Will you be a perfect fit for this?" Like I said, I would be mentored, kind of thing. And so they took the time to mentor me and took me through a one-on-one discipleship. And and then I would just observe and watch the chapels and stuff. So, but it's, there's great value in discipleship and mentoring. And Athletes in Action is really big on that.
Yeah. So this is something that kind of like you didn't seek out, but it's seeked you. Yeah.
God sought me out. Like there's no doubt in my mind that it was part of God's bigger plan. Because when I became a new believer, I was just on fire for the Lord. Mm-hmm. I'd go to anything, like, Alpha, you name it. You tell me something that was going on at the meeting place. Yeah. It was an extra course. I'd take it. I just wanted to get it. I couldn't get enough. Right. And maybe it's because I was I was 35, right? Like, I mean, I was, maybe if I was 20, I probably maybe not have that same kind of enthusiasm. But for me, it was really valuable for me to just, I really think that God, it was part of his plan. And yet it was at a time when baseball had been, you get kind of tired of things. And I think when I was getting involved with the Goldeyes, I was a little burnt out from baseball from a secular perspective.
Okay.
The grind of it all, and I was feeling a little burned out. But then when God presented this, and it came in the form of ministry, it was a whole new rich feeling again, and revigoration of sorts.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Take us through, like, you're involved with Athletes in Action. You're a chaplain for multiple sports teams.
Mm-hmm.
Take us through the average day that you, like, on a Monday morning, Monday afternoon. What's your average day look like? Yeah,
well, maybe the easiest way to describe that, like, because I work from home. I don't have an office at the stadium or the arena. So what I'll do, so probably the best way for me to describe that is to describe a week in a day in a week of the Bombers, for example. So for the Bombers, during the year, once the season starts, we have a 5-day work week for the players. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and on day 5 they play. Every day 2, we have a Bible study that I have for players. So I'll make sure that I'm at that practice, watching the practice, seeing the guys after practice, and then I'll have my Bible study in one of the team meeting rooms on that particular day. And then another day, we'll have either day 3 or day 4, depending on if we're traveling or not. I'll have a coach's Bible study. So that's another thing. I'm blessed with a coach's Bible study with the Bombers that Richie Hall leads. He's our coach rep for it. And so I'll have a player's Bible study one day, a coach's Bible study another day, and then on game day, which would be if we're at home on game day, I'll do a chapel for the visiting team in their hotel. So I'll get a text from, I don't know, Trevor Harris or Cody Fajardo and say, can you come and do a chapel at the Fairmont at 11 o'clock? And of course I go and I do a horrible chapel, right? Do the Lord's Prayer and walk out.
Especially right? Before the banjo bowl. Okay, guys. Bless you all. See you all tomorrow.
Here's some special beverage to drink.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, though, I mean, sometimes you leave your best chapels in the visiting team, right? And you go, oh man, I think I left some in the bullpen, right? You come to, and yours is kind of flat, the Bombers. Yeah. But so I do that in the morning for the visiting team. And then it's unique in football because 2.5 hours before the game, I will do a chapel in one of our meeting rooms as well. Okay. So during the week when it's a Bible study, it's really interactive. So I mentioned earlier on to you guys about maybe doing Tim Tebow videos or Tony Evans or whoever it may be. We do different teachers will do a video followed by discussion and Bible study. So during the week, it's really interactive at a Bible study. But game day chapel, it's just like a mini sermon, right? Like 12, 15 minutes kind of thing. And guys are really dialed in, like they're rolling around, they're foam rollers, they're getting loose. They're like, it's
so they're doing that while
you're doing it, right? And like, I get Big Hill rolling around and like, because they're stretching, right? And you gotta, you have to be really, really prepared for this as you're speaking, right? Because you really, as you're speaking, you're thinking, are they listening to anything that I'm saying? I give them notes they could take away so they can always read them later.
Some weeks are not sure, right?
But they're such good guys. Like they're great guys, and so, but they're thinking about the guy that's as. They're there to listen to you on chapel day, but really I think they're thinking about the game a little bit too, right? Yeah. So then, but then there's some unique things that happen with football that don't happen with hockey. With hockey, I'll back up to hockey a little bit. With hockey, every homestand, I'll try to do a hybrid of a chapel and a Bible study. So it'll be a little bit of a teach with some Q&A at the end of it. Yep. And we're not allowed to do anything on game day for hockey. But for football on game day, it's really quite an experience because I do the pregame chapel, And then we do, just before Coach O'Shea comes in to talk to his players, we'll do what's called a weight room prayer.
Right.
Okay.
And so we pick the largest room that we can find where we can do, like, get in a big circle and we can pray before the game so we don't offend anybody on the team that doesn't want to be part of it.
Yeah.
So on the road, it's called a shower prayer, because the biggest room is the shower. The non-dressing room is called the shower. So guys stand in the shower and they'll just hold hands. Like, they're obviously full uniforms on, everything, right? And so we do the weight room prayer. It's really brief prayer. We all hold hands, and this prayer kind of get their mind set before they head on the field. But what also happens in football, though, is after the game, there's something really rich that happens after the game, and that's one of my favorite moments in being a chaplain. It's called Prayer at the 50.
Okay.
And it's some of you, you're nodding. You're familiar with Prayer at the 50, and with the prayer at the center field, and where you may have seen it on TV, where teams are praying from both teams. They get in a circle, and they
all get in close.
Yeah, they get in close. They take a knee, and the chaplain will lead them through a quick, brief prayer. And what's so impressive about it is that guys are banging and crashing like crazy, like all night long, but yet they still, at the end of the game, can put it aside and can come back and worship God. And it's just incredible. Now, there's been times during Bomber games where, at the end of the game, it's almost like scuffles going on. And I'm thinking, I don't know if this prayer on the 50 is going to happen today. Like, it's not looking very good. And yet all of a sudden, you go to center field and guys, they're still coming along. And I'm thinking, oh, but I don't have to break anything up here. But they'll come and they'll pray. And
but they're respectful of the situation, right? Like this,
totally.
Even like if somebody, I would assume, was in a bad mood or couldn't deal with that situation, would probably just withdraw themselves from the situation.
Yeah, they probably just go off to the dressing room or whatever, and just wouldn't go in the circle.
Have you ever had to get in the middle of a couple people?
No, I've never have. It's amazing how respectful the guys get, and it's a real blessing. And quick story, if I may.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
One of my former Bomber defensive coaches, he played in the NFL, played for Oakland Raiders. And when he was playing for Oakland Raiders, his wife had brought an unchurched friend to the game.
Okay.
And so they were watching, and they were going to wait for Glenn and wait for him after the game. And but he took a little while after the game because he stopped for prayer at the 50. And so he came over to the sidelines, and he met his wife and his wife's friend, and they chit-chatted or whatever. The cool thing is, the next day Glenn finds out that his wife's friend gave her life to the Lord.
Awesome.
Wow.
And one of the big reasons was prayer at the 50.
Yeah.
And she was really moved by that. And so I tell that story to my guys. I say, guys, like it's not just for us, but we don't know who's watching, right? And
well, at the end of the day, and that's a fantastic story. Appreciate that. At the end of the day, us guys, especially us guys, we get involved in sports is the big thing, winning and losing.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's just a game, and we forget that sometimes. And what you're doing is above and beyond. You're dealing with people's lives, and for the rest of their life, they might have even the CFL, they might have a 1-year career.
Yeah.
But the rest of their lives, what you speak into their lives makes a whole lot more difference than that 1 year that they play physical football, right? You were telling us an awesome story off air before we started interviewing that of the 22-man roster for the Winnipeg Jets, 10 of those players attend a Bible study that you put on for the Jets, which is almost 50%, which is a crazy, unbelievable stat in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm going to combine this with the story. I remember in Pat Riley's book, the owner or GM of the Miami Heat, he talks about how he was mentoring Shaquille O'Neal back in the day when he played for the Miami Heat.
Okay.
And they couldn't get them to play together. I think it was him and Wade. And they didn't know what was going on. They just couldn't come together and play as one team. And finally, Pat Riley stopped and said, talk to Shaq. And it was, what's going on? And Shaq had some personal issue that he had to deal with. And he took him aside and said it was something to do interpersonal with relationships and stuff like that. And he spent some time with that player and, got to know him. He got to just stopped the X's and O's of the games and really talked to him as an individual and worked through that problem and cared about that athlete. And it says after that, he just was able to play that game more instinctively because the stuff that was happening outside in his personal life was maybe not fixed, but it was really dealt with, and the coach showed that he cared. My question after all that is, do you feel as a chaplain that the work you do with the players and maybe help, you've said a couple stories about helping them through issues in their daily lives, do you think that helps them focus on the field because of the job that you do with them?
Well, I try not to take credit for what they do on the field. Like I think what I can do is help them mature as men and become better men of God. And as a byproduct of that, I think their maturity level, they have a better chance to be a better high performance athlete because it requires discipline. It requires that you're on ice, on field is matching up with your off ice, off field stuff. And so I would say yes. Again, all glory to God. But I would say yes, it helps to be a positive influence on the players, because what it does is it just helps with build their character, and it helps with their performance ostensibly. And I've seen it with guys. Like I mean, over the years, you see guys come and go for the different teams, and you can see if someone's got a bad character, they're not a good, high character guy, and you see where they're letting their team down on the ice or on the field. So yeah, I try where I can to help out. So I say.
Yeah.
Do you find that it's true that sometimes the issues off ice or off the field does affect their play?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Well, we just saw last night, right? Nichushkin for Colorado has got suspended for 6 months plus for drug use, right? And that's directly, he's got a problem. Like I'm not running him down when I say that.
No. I think he knows it.
Yeah, he knows it,
right?
and we got to pray for someone like that. He's got an issue, and it's affected his performance, right? And so now he can't be in the Stanley Cup playoffs anymore. And you hope that he gets his life together. And you've seen it happen. And I mean, I think of our two teams are really blessed with high character groups that really value that. Like I think. Mike O'Shea really values that with the teams, with that culture that we have, like from Wade Miller right all the way through to Mike O'Shea to Kyle Walters to Mike O'Shea. We really value the high character players.
Yeah.
And same with Mark Chipman, who Mark, by the way, is a strong believer and really promotes what we do with our ministry, and it's really important that when we think of that, because they want to bring in high character guys, right? And so we're trying to help make better men of God with strong character. And so if we can help a little bit, then so be it.
Yeah. I've heard that about Chipman. A, he's a strong believer, and B, he plays mean drums.
Yeah, he is a good drummer.
I did not know the mean
Mark
drums
is a good. He is a good drummer.
Like an angry drummer, like an
no, like he's
the Muppets.
He's a very good drummer. I don't know if he's an angry drummer. I heard he's very good.
Yeah, he's a very good drummer, and he's opened up doors for us too. Like I do a True North Chapel front office Bible study, and so we have that, and plus
so that's outside the Jets stuff. Then
outside the Jets and
True North,
True North, their front office. Yeah, the True North, which. You don't hear of that very often, that businesses will have a Bible study right at their facility. We do it on their lunch hour.
That's for sure.
Yeah, we don't do it. We do it on their lunch hour, so they're not affecting doesn't cut into their work time.
Yeah.
And we also have an alumni Bible study, so Jets alumni. So it's kind of stretched my role a little bit. I wouldn't have expected it when I got involved that God would have placed.
Started with the Gold Eyes.
Yeah.
And then moved up like with the Moose. Moose was second, right?
Yeah.
Or was the Bombers?
The Moose and the Bombers came out at the same time. Yeah.
And that was 2009?
Yeah.
The Moose and the Bombers?
2009. Yeah, it was my first year. Yeah.
So, and then like 2.5 years later, the Jets come around.
Yeah.
Right? Like how does that change? Like I know that you're working with professional athletes with the Moose, but the Jets is like this is a different level of league, right? Like the NHL's got to have different levels of regulations and rules and all that kind of stuff that would come into play for somebody like yourself, I would assume.
Yeah, so like for hockey, I like it's interesting. I wear two hats. Like for football, I serve for and I work full time for an organization called Athletes in Action. But for hockey, I serve on behalf of Hockey Ministries International.
Okay.
So my supervisor for hockey is actually a former Jet, Laurie Boschman.
Okay,
You've heard of Bosch.
Yeah.
So Bosch is a friend and a supervisor. So I'm kind of blessed because like I know Bosch and he's got a soft spot for Winnipeg, and so that's great. And he's just a fantastic guy.
He had a great mustache when he played hockey.
Oh
too.
yeah. And so and he loved the Lord and still does. And he's
Did he still have a good mustache?
yeah, I don't. He doesn't have that mustache anymore.
Okay.
So yeah, he doesn't have the mustache anymore. But no, but he's been instrumental in opening up doors. So when Rick Bowness signed here, like Bosch, knew him well and was able to introduce me to him and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But in terms of with hockey, it was kind of interesting because when Athletes in Action first wanted me to come on full time, it was going to be the Bombers and the Goldeyes.
Yeah.
And at that point, Mark Shipman had said to me, he was a good friend of mine. We're good friends because we had coached hockey against each other with our daughters are both very good hockey players.
Okay.
And he said, Lorne, that's my nickname. He said, Lorne, you're a hockey guy too. Like I need something for the Moose.
Yeah.
I said, oh, well, I didn't know that you needed someone. So I said, well, I'd be happy to do it. I'd be honored to do that. So I started out with the Moose. And when the Jets came back, I was blessed that Mark trusted me to take on the Jets. And so, yeah.
It's crazy. 2009, when you started with the Bombers, I worked for the Bombers in 2010. That's when I first met you.
Yeah.
And I would have never known that this was only your second year. Like you were so integrated into there. Like you seemed to know everybody and you were always around, right? And it just goes to show, like, for your character that you are somebody that people have been trusting for years now.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Because, and again, that goes to that my boss, Dave Clausen, who's the director of Athletes in Action Canada, always talks to us about a ministry of presence, about being present, and knowing where and part of the skill of chaplaincy is knowing where to be, when to be there, how long to be there, and where not to be.
Yeah.
And the not to be's is an important one. Like, don't get in the way of the coach when he's got to talk to the guys or whatever, right? Yeah. So you got to, and you figure it out over time, right? I've been in some wrong places, and I've been kind of like, no, you can't be there. Okay, I know that.
Back away.
I know that. Okay, I'll never do that again. And
you got some big dudes coming at you in football.
Yeah. And but no. So yeah, no. It's ministry of presence where see and yet not be in the way kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it's so you kind of figure that out over time and yeah, so no, it's good.
But do you ever be present all day and then you get home and your wife says something, you're like, I'm somewhere else. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a question for you. We're all born again Christians and very proud of that. And I assume that's most of the athletes that come to you for spiritual guidance are the same.
Yeah.
Do you also, if someone is of a different faith, represent them or help them along in that faith that you're maybe not as fluent in, let's say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I try my best to serve everybody. So, and again, I try to help them, and we're called to love on everybody, right? And so, whether it's a Jewish player, a Muslim player, whoever it may be, I'll try to develop a relationship with them. I mean, there's a Muslim guy that was with the Bombers, and we had a good relationship for many years while he was here, and I think we had a good understanding. I wasn't going to try to confer to him and bring him into our stuff, and but he really appreciated what I did, and I remember him thanking me like appreciate what you do for the team and how you care for the guys, and so so I just try to be open to everybody.
More shining a light, essentially, right? Like being that light. I heard a quote today, and I'm going to butcher it 100%, but it was talking about like shining a light, but being not being a spotlight, just being running lights.
Okay.
Right? So you be running lights through your life, and then people will see you, right? Whereas if you have your high beams on, people can't see you because they're blinded by what you're trying to do, right? So again, I'm butchering it 100%, but like it's kind of like what you're doing, you know, like you can be with somebody who's Muslim or Jewish or another faith because you have your running lights on, right? Like they can see that light without being, you know, put
Blinded.
off by it,
Yeah.
right?
I like that. That's a great analogy. Can I use that?
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's really...
I'm horrible. I can't remember where I heard it today.
Just take hashtag Greg and Tim show.
Gee, there you go.
Exactly.
Exactly. But you know, it's so true. The idea of running lights versus spotlight, because if you guys have all come across, you know, we're all born again Christians. You come across people that are over the top, and they're gonna be so strong on you that you're gonna run the other way, right? If you're not a believer. And I really believe that. I have a soft, gentle approach and a relational approach that I use for ministry. And I'd rather do it that way than to, you know, I've seen other guys, you know, and they've got different approaches, but come on too strong. And I think it can be detrimental if you come on too strong and with that spotlight or the bright lights, having your brights on, so to speak.
There's always that balance too, I find. Like, I assume your position is, you know who I am. If you want to talk to me about something, I'm always available. But for people who, let's say, are unchurched or unbelievers, you're not going to say, go up and somebody and say, hey, you know, how's practice going? And would you like to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and personal Savior?
Absolutely
right?
not. It's like, that'd be the last thing I would do, because to me, I would say to them, how's practice going? How's life? Like, what's going on? Like, how are you doing? Right?
Be a genuine person.
Yeah.
At our church, we have a term called spirit contemporary, and that's what it kind of means. You're always in the spirit, but you're also contemporary. You know, you're like you say, you develop a personal relationship, and people, like I say, people know who you are. If they want to ask a question, they can. And again, there's a balance to that too.
Sure.
And I assume some days you question whether you're fitting that balance at some points, but it sounds like you do a fairly good job of that.
I try my best, and just trying to be approachable, walking that fine line, but yet it's still representing the Lord too, right? Like still making sure that I'm true to what my calling is, right? I'm called to do this, and I don't want to water it down, and I want to be there so that people know that that's what I'm there for. And as much as, and it can be in this day and age, you don't know how long that's going to last, because, so for example, every day I drive by the stadium, I come down Bishop Granite and I can see the arches, not McDonald's, but I can see the arches, the arches stadium, and I
because you've already gotten your coffee, so
So I see those arches, and Dave John's my mentor, always taught me to pray this prayer: Dear Lord, I just pray for a strong hedge protection. Lord, as I go to enter this facility, may you just continue to give me favor. And I'm so very thankful that I can just come for another day, because I never know if my access is going to get denied or management's going to change, and new coach, new manager, new whatever. I've seen it in my business where I've had friends that work for other teams, and they've had great access like I have right now, and all of a sudden management changes and they're blocked out. And it happens. And more in a secular society that we live in, we are so blessed that we can still do what we do.
It's actually one of the questions I was thinking about was, like, is there chaplains and in all the teams, like for all the NHL teams, is there a chaplain for all the CFL teams? Like, is there a group of you that talk to each other, or that have any kind of like WhatsApp group, that type of thing, where, you know, you guys can like communicate with each other, and not like talking about like players, but just talking about different things that you guys have gone through or that you've worked with and that type of thing. Is there anything like that you guys have? Yeah,
absolutely. In fact, I was on one of those calls today. I was on our AIA Pro prayer call. So we have all our pro chaplains. And by the way, I should tell you this too, that I've been mentoring a guy that now Denny Michel Thibault is his name. Okay. And he is the chaplain for the Valor FC Soccer.
Oh, cool.
He does a fine job with them, and he's part of our group. And we have this AIA Pro prayer call every Tuesday morning from 10 to 11, and we pray.
Yeah.
And you kind of wonder when we first started this, and you think, well, how are we going to pray for an hour? But it's amazing how when you start, you got, like there were 7 or 8 guys on the call today. We have 9 teams in CFL. Someone's got to be here or there, couldn't be there or whatever. But even our soccer chaplains come on, or whoever it is, but majority is CFL chaplains. So we have a CFL group.
Yep.
And we also once a month we'll have like a staff meeting with that same group as well, to talk about who's got chapel leaders. It's free agency time. Can you let us know some players that have gone to your team that are maybe chapel friendly kind of thing? So we share that information with each other to
signings and that type of thing.
So and so signed with BC. Yeah, he was a quarterback with us, and now we're there, but he's a Christian guy, that kind of thing.
So you have foreknowledge.
Yeah, so we got some foreknowledge, and so that group is it's so valuable because we get to pray together.
Yeah,
and so it's good, and we do that every week, and then we have another group with Hockey Ministries International. So CFL, every team's got a chaplain. To answer your question, NHL, most teams have a chaplain.
Okay.
I think I was looking at the list just today.
The Devils don't.
No. Good one. I think
to counteract.
There you go. Yeah. But yeah, I think the NHL has 30 out of 32 teams represented.
Okay.
And they have
that's a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And they have a couple of times a year. We'll have kind of like chat calls as well too, where we'll get together. And our CFL group, we actually have a live chat going all the time. So someone needs prayer for something, or something's going on, or sometimes there's things we celebrate as well too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have a good fellowship amongst chaplains, and so
because
we're kind of lone rangers too, right? Like I don't have anybody else really
You're a one-man gang in the organization.
Yeah. So would you consider like all your players like your congregation type of thing? Is that what you would consider that as a chaplain? Yeah,
actually, for clergy purposes, we do consider them. That's our congregation is the players that we serve. So yeah. So it's.
And it's got to be tough for some of the CFL players, because a lot of them will play on the weekends, or they'll be out of town on the weekends and that type of thing. So they can't really attend a regular service, right? So for you to provide that service before a game is a very, very good thing for them.
Oh, absolutely. Like they, we all say, you're either practicing or playing on Sunday. So church is probably not an option for most guys.
Yeah.
So we bring church to the athletes.
Yeah.
And so,
do you play 3 songs on your guitar first?
Or? I wish I could. I wish I was that talented.
Do you play guitar?
No, I don't play guitar, and you don't want to hear me sing.
Nobody wants to hear Tim sing.
Hey, wait, whoa!
Yes, he's a
I'll come anytime. Me and Justin will lead.
There you
lead
go.
For the guys.
Yeah, you and Justin Hance, that's for sure. And but yeah, no, it's great. Like and the guys, it's good, and they have a good time at fellowship too, getting together and you're part of the team when they're going to throw some jokes your way too. And so we have, it's good fellowship. And I wish I had more time in our studies to incorporate praise and worship, because I think it would be valuable.
Yeah.
But their schedules are just they're so scheduled.
Yeah.
And their schedules are pretty rigid. And so you've got a period of time, you got to make sure that you get in what you want to get in.
Yeah. Well, and the odd time I think they can come to service, whether it's on a Wednesday night, or some churches have Wednesday night, and then Sunday. We've had some Bombers come to our church.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we sign. I remember signing in my kids, to kids to the church that Wednesday night, and there's a Bomber dad that signed their kid in too. I was like, I guess they're here.
Undercover. Yeah. And it's. I think it's becoming more and more. Out there, and more like people are speaking up more. Like I think in the last 4 years especially, people are speaking up more about their faith and talking about their faith more outwardly in a public manner, that type of thing, right? So you see guys like Mark Scheifele, who's no surprise that he he's in his dealings with yourself. I read an article about Rick Bonus's wife and how she was going to the hospital, and then Mason Appleton made a comment, I think, in the locker room afterwards, saying like he did like a prayer and they were all praying for his wife and everything like that. And it's a very cool thing to see these athletes sharing their faiths and sharing their beliefs. And I think a lot of that comes from leadership like yourself too.
Yeah, well, again, I give glory to God. I don't like to take credit for that, but those guys are great guys. Like, I think of Mace, like Mason Appleton and Scheif, and like Mark Scheif, he's our chapel leader. Mason's devoted. He's been with our group from the times with the Moose and now through with the Jets, and just to watch those guys grow over time, and see our just even the fact to have our core leadership team from our team, like Adam Lowry, our captain, and our 2 assistants with Josh Morrissey and Mark Scheifele, all involved with our group is
That's
powerful.
awesome.
It's powerful, right?
Yeah.
And and Mark has really grown in his faith, and he's involved with an NHL group that's of key NHL Christian players that get together on top of our chapels.
Oh wow.
And so he's been kind of sought out by that group. And I know he tries to attend church when he can here in Winnipeg, and he's really grown in his faith, and I'm just so proud of him. And I'm proud of him on the ice. Obviously, he's a great player.
Yeah.
And all those guys are great players, but I'm proud of them for the way they've grown as men.
Yeah.
You've kind of touched on this a little bit throughout the interview, but what is the one thing that you really value the most that you get to do with your job with athletes, whether it's with athletes in action, whether with a sports team? What is the one thing that you really value that you get to do the most in your job to impact the lives of young men or young women in these organizations?
Yeah, I would probably say discipleship. I would say as much as chapels and Bible studies are so vitally important, and that's sort of the key components of what we do.
Yeah.
But those one-on-one relationships are really what I am wired for, trying to make sure, and whether it's a formal, we've got a formal one-on-one discipleship program like Mark Scheifele. Actually, during COVID, Mark Scheifele went through a one-on-one discipleship with me because that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like, because he's that dedicated, right? And so here we take guys formally through programs like that, or just whether it's informal discipleship building. To me, that's what I really value.
Yeah.
I really value that, and getting opportunity to pray with guys. Like, I just prayed for a guy yesterday. He's released, and I won't name any names. He was released, and he's on the roster, but he's still around. He's trying to come back from an injury, and he was a rookie last year, and he's like, I know it's a business, but right. And so I said, well, let's pray, and because he was part of our group last year, and so those are the times when you think like, those are the times when I value being there, because I know then I can really try to be the hands and feet of Jesus, when I can try to impact guys by coming alongside them, just praying with them. Like, even my time with, like, one of the things I didn't describe with the Bombers is that I'm on the sidelines.
Yeah.
So, I'm really blessed that I have an opportunity to be on the sidelines. And while I'm on the sidelines, one of the things that happens is when a player gets hurt, they'll go on. Now we have a tent that goes over top of that pops up when they get injured. They go in a tent and they get in. They get in there.
I think they're just hiding from the fans.
Yeah, well, they are. They're trying to protect.
It's a prayer tent. He's praying for them.
That's I wish it was a prayer tent, exactly. But they go in there and they see the doctors and therapists, and when they come up, they're sitting on a trainer's table, and it's the loneliest place for them to be.
Yeah.
And because they don't know whether that knee injury is, maybe it's going to put them up for one game, 1 month, 1 year, or maybe a career.
Yeah.
And so, when the time is right, I'll mosey over and I'll say, hey, would you like a prayer? And, 99% of the time, the guy will say, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
yes,
sure.
yes, please pray for me.
Yeah.
And that's a special time too, is when you can pray for guys, and it's sometimes very sad. And, but yet, or if the guy gets carted off, I'll follow down and go to the dressing room and see after he comes out of the doctor's office, and maybe pray with them. So those are times when you can try to be there to support them.
The word in my head that I'm thinking when I'm listening to is touch points.
Yeah.
You value touch points. Anytime you can communicate, just talk to somebody. How challenging was COVID, where things just shut down and you couldn't talk to somebody in person? I know you said Shifley had Zoom calls, but how challenging was that, and how did you kind of work through that time?
It was very hard. Although I would say that we, and the most overused word during COVID, pivoted really well, because we went to Zoom right away, and we had Zoom Bible studies, chapels, and I was almost more busy because my guys were like, they needed it, right? They were like anybody else, right? We weren't sure what was COVID, and so my guys were about to go into, my NHL guys were about to go into a bubble.
Yeah.
And which was horrible. Like
in a city where they don't live. Yeah.
And they couldn't do anything. And so just trying to prepare them to go and be in the playoff bubble and stuff. And, so we actually developed some closer relationships than one would think online. Yeah. But they couldn't wait for us to come back in person. Me too. Yeah. So it's definitely was a challenge for us, but God did a work through it, and we were able to do that, right? And so it's
so you're a hockey fan, you're a football fan, you're a sports fan, you said.
Yeah.
You get to work with these athletes all the time. Is there ever been an athlete that's walked into your room that you've been like, whoa?
Yeah. No, every so often.
You don't have to name names.
No, but every so often.
No, you do.
It's funny. Every so often you'll see somebody, and my wife will say to me, she knows that I've been around athletes a lot, and growing up as a baseball guy, we were in a church, a small church, the Source Church, and Daryl Strawberry is speaking. And Strawberry
in Winnipeg or in Tampa?
In Winnipeg.
Okay.
He came up and talked to me after, and I couldn't talk.
Yeah.
I was tongue-tied. I wanted to ask Daryl Strawberry, I was like, the straw man. This is Daryl Strawberry. And I was like, Heather said, you were starstruck. And I said, I was. Because she seen me talk to everybody, whether our players and from our teams, and, the odd time an NHL team will come in and you'll see them coming off the bus and I'll say, well, that's Sidney Crosby. And you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, but that was one time for me where
Daryl Strawberry.
And Strawberry, who has had a checkered past and who's since become a Christian.
Yeah, that's why I'm so proud of him, the way he's turned it around, and he's getting his jersey retired now, and so it's.
And he has a relationship with Ralph and Joanne from the Source Church. We know Ralph and Joanne. They used to actually come to our church before they planted the Source.
Yeah, they're great people.
Really awesome people.
Yeah.
And now they have one in Tampa, you said?
That's where they started. The second one was
in Tampa. They have one in Winnipeg.
Bradenton, where we actually just were a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
But they brought Daryl in to speak, and so that was so every so often you
can hit it, still kind of hits.
Oh yeah, it does. It does. And you kind of like,
because us being schlubs, right? We don't meet these guys.
I'm a schlub too,
right? No, but you see them all the time. You're kind of integrated into like their communities, right? So you can't be starstruck as much as somebody like Tim, who a few months ago, Kirk Keelback walked in the door.
Well, I would be starstruck by Kirk Keelback too. Yeah,
he couldn't.
I didn't know it was happening. You actually knew Daryl Strawberry was going to be there.
Yeah,
I had no idea until 5 minutes before. So it's a little different story.
Yeah.
It was Tim's birthday, and I got him Kirk Keelback's book for his birthday. Okay. So we did a lot, like on our podcast. I gave him the book, and he opened it up and everything like that. And we talked about Kirk Keelback for a little while.
Okay.
And then he walked through the door without Tim knowing he was coming.
Wow.
We're just going to do a regular interview, just the two of us. We're talking, and all of a sudden, Kirk Keelback's there.
So he introduces himself. He's like, "Hi, I'm Kurt," and he's like, and Tim's just like. But we have it all in video, which is the best part.
What's my name again?
Yeah,
I just couldn't remember my name.
Oh, that's too funny.
So it was a fantastic conversation. But that's why I ask, is because like everybody gets starstruck by somebody, right? So like even though you see all these people on a regular basis, Sidney Crosby walks in the door, like that guy would be an amazing person to meet on the first time, right?
Sure. And I never got to meet him, but I just the bus, you're maybe going to meet player from, because sometimes you'll go and meet a player from the visiting team, like Eric Fair used to play for Pittsburgh, and so Fairsy was one of our chapel guys. He's my first chapel leader with the Jets, and so sometimes after the game I'll go and go down to the visitors kind of dressing room area and wait after the game and say hi, and you'll see some of the other players coming out of there, and you kind of go, oh yeah, that's that guy, from TV, and it's interesting. Yeah, you get to meet some really interesting guys.
Little known fact: if your last name's Fair, you have to be a Christian.
There you go. Pretty much.
And from Winkler.
And from Winkler. Yes. Shout out to Winkler for Fairsy.
Did you know that Daryl Strawberry played against the Goldeyes?
Yes, he did. That's right. That's St. Paul Saints.
The old stadium.
The old stadium.
And I saw that. I did not see the Jays thing, but I saw
you saw Strawberry in the old stadium. Okay.
Because I'm a big baseball fan, and growing up I was a huge baseball fan, and when the Goldeyes came back I was very excited. The Cannons used to come to Winnipeg.
Calgary Cannons.
The Edmonton Trappers used to come to Winnipeg all the time. So I'd always go to those games. When the Goldeyes came back, me and my dad would go to the games a lot.
Yeah.
And then when I found out that Daryl Strawberry, because it was very popular when he played in the majors, he was on The Simpsons. And then I found out he was going to be on the St. Paul Saints.
Right.
And I'm like, I got to see this guy. He was on The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And then, he obviously went through all of his stuff. And it's very cool that you got to meet him after he spoke.
Yeah. No, he was a great he is a great preacher. And he just had a great sermon. And at the end, I was able to... actually got his autograph too. I never ask players for autographs, right? So, but
and he
unless it's for a charity,
he sent you his room number after too.
There you go. That's right. Yeah, you room 109. Yeah, but yeah. So, so every so often you get starstruck and someone who's a non-player that I saw that I was starstruck by. He walked by. It was Ron McLean.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I said, "Wow, that's Ron McLean, Hockey Night in Canada. Like he's on every Saturday night. You see Ron McLean."
Yeah, Ron McLean, and he's so small. And
he's on a big.
I met him at Hometown Hockey, and I'm like, this guy is tiny.
Yeah. We can't interview him now if you say that. He's never going to be on our show.
He's never going to come on the show.
No, small. I didn't say he was like.
Nobody likes to be called small.
That's right.
Nobody likes to be called small.
Say he's diminutive.
Exactly. That's the word I was thinking of. So going back to the Winnipeg Stadium days, the Goldeyes played their first couple of years there too, right? Yeah. And they had a thing where you could go for $50. You could try out for the Winnipeg Goldeyes.
Yes, I remember that.
So I paid my $50 and I played second base in my shorts. That was the worst choice. I had my shorts on, and it was the AstroTurf, and I slid to get a ball. I got
you get turf
red spot the entire
Whoa.
But I made contact with one pitch.
Okay.
And I hit a ground ball to second. Yeah. I by the way, I did not make the Goldeyes, if anyone wants to know.
He didn't make the Goldeyes. I did not get to try out for the Goldeyes, but the Lexington Legends are a team in the States, and we interviewed a guy by the name of Gregg Zaun, who used to play for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, he used to play for the
And he's coaching the Lexington Legends. They actually had an open practice. We could have went.
Oh, yeah.
We could have went and tried out for the Legends. Had Zaun yell at us.
That's okay. I'm good. I had a question on the tip of my tongue and I totally forgot. You ruined it for me.
How did you guys get Gregg Zaun on the show?
He folled me on Instagram.
No, they're both named Gregg.
Okay.
They were both named Gregg.
And they both have an extra G at the end of their name.
No, I don't. I only have one G at the end of my name. He's he was on Instagram, and I just reached out to him. One of our other guests, his name is Drew Dudley. He teaches this thing called rejection therapy.
Okay.
So rejection therapy is essentially doing something on a daily basis, not the same thing, but doing something daily that you think won't work, but you're going to try anyway. And it'll work for you. So what you do is, you can walk up to somebody and you can say, hey, can I pray for you? Or, like that type of thing. For me, I reached out to Gregg Zaun and I just messaged him on Instagram and I said, hey, we're doing a podcast. Any chance that you want to join us? And I'm like, if he sees it, he sees it. If he responds, he responds. He responded with, what took you so long? I'll be on there anytime.
He had previous contact with him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was, we were following each other on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't
but still, to, reach out and ask him, I'm like, it took me a little while to, reach out and say, hey, do you want to join us? Because I'm like, and it's one of those rejection things. It's like, you put it out there, who knows what's going to happen.
Right.
So it's kind of... What's helped me with this podcast is, just putting ourselves out there. If people say no, they say no. If they
That's
say
right.
yes, they say
And
yes.
the idea behind the rejection therapy is that even if you get rejected, it develops something inside of you for habits that allows you to do more things that you wouldn't necessarily do. And it's kind of like Yes Man for Jim Carrey, where you just develop this other part of your personality.
Right. A little resiliency.
Exactly.
And yeah.
Question. I just remember what it was.
Oh.
So we're all
Tip of the tongue.
we all love baseball. We play baseball.
Yeah.
We are multiple championship team in our church
Good.
league.
Good.
We're kind of a legend in our own minds.
We've actually
Yes,
been picked up by another team in our church league.
Then you must
So-
got pickups then.
Yeah.
When you played, and I always like to know this, but what position did you like to play?
I played first base for the Alma Giants. Yeah, I was so
I played for the Elma Giants too.
You did really?
I did, yeah.
Holy smokes.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. That's you're in the right organization. That's God's country, Elmwood. That's where I grew up. I grew up in Elmwood.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I
On
played
Watt and
against the
Harbison.
Elmwood Giants. I played
Did you
for the
really?
Stonewall Blue Jays.
Stonewall Blue Jays, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. That's good. I saw your you in a Blue Jays uniform in that picture there.
Yeah.
And I wondered whether that could have been there.
Oh, I'm in a picture. I did a one of those camps where they take random people out on and we get to do like drills like a
like
regular
a fantasy
player.
camp or whatever.
Fantasy camp, exactly. Yeah. So Louis Rivera was my coach.
Oh, okay.
And I did like ground balls, fly balls.
Okay.
We got to hit, and we
So
had
you
to do
guys
all
were
the
pretty serious
running.
about it. Those good camps. Yeah.
Oh, it was. They ran it like as if we were players, type of thing. Yeah,
and he did not make the Toronto
I
Blue
did
Jays.
not make the Toronto Blue Jays, but I got pants, a belt, undershirt, and jersey all for it.
Yeah.
So if they need me, and they might this year, they're not very good.
You're ready to go.
I'm ready to
You're
play.
ready to go.
So.
Well, Bichette's picking it up, so you might not.
He's starting to pick up, so you may not get
Is
that.
he picking it up now?
He's turning around a little bit. Yeah.
Bichette is another very outwardly Christian player on a team that, baseball probably has a lot of different faiths because you've got some players from other countries and stuff like that. But Bichette really wears his on his sleeve a lot too.
It's nice to see. What's interesting, I should tell you this too, with Baseball Chapel, which is, I would say, out of all the groups, it's the most highly organized group, Baseball Chapel.
Okay.
We got chaplains in like so many countries because it's just such a popular game in Latin America, that what we do is we get notes sent to us, as all the chaplains get these notes sent to us, and they're in Spanish and English.
Oh, okay.
And when we hand our notes out, they get, and I had, even for the Gold Eyes, I had many Hispanic players that would come to chapel, and I just wished that I could speak Spanish so I could have at least said something, to communicate with them. But yeah, it's Baseball Chapel. I mean, it's a great, and then what's cool is the same, and you're required to do the same message that they send you that week. And so if you're working through Proverbs or whatever it is, then you just keep working through it. So each week, but it's the same message that the Gold Eyes are getting is the same one the Blue Jays are getting, and all the minor league teams in between. So if you get called up to a different level, you're working on a series that you've been getting through Baseball Chapel. So it's a wonderful organization.
Very organized, very hyper focused on.
Oh yeah. They're really really good.
So your life has been kind of in two halves: pre-Jesus, we'll say, and post-Jesus. And so you kind of have that perspective that some people don't necessarily get. For me, I often wish I had a Apostle Paul moment, right? Where you're blinded and you change direction, and you can tell people, "Hey, once I was this, and now I'm that." And sometimes I lament that, but you have that. You have, I think, that this kind of perspective because of that gives you some better insight, I think, to dealing with who you're dealing with. What if I were to ask you, what piece of advice would you give to someone mid-20s, early 20s, just living their life, maybe not, maybe knowing Jesus, knowing the Lord, but not really fully committed? What kind of piece of advice would you give to that person, maybe you at that age, now that you've lived so many decades later, to that person, maybe a younger you?
Yeah. Just that God never gives up on you. Like, we have a patient God, and that, God loved me through my struggles, and in that when he was ready, he made me ready to accept him, and saying to people out there that are in their 20s and maybe they're thinking, well, I'm not ready for this. I would say I would say, well, just be open. And, we have a loving God, a patient God, a caring God. And, I wish I would have took heed of that earlier in my life. Wouldn't have gone through as many struggles. And, but yet at the same time, our mess becomes our message. Our test becomes our testimonies. And our trials becomes our triumphs. And so it's important that we can share our struggles, right? Like I'm a mental health consumer as well. I haven't told you guys that yet, and I'm glad I was able to tell that. I'm bipolar, so I battle my depression, and but it's important. Whenever I talk somewhere, I will always share that, because there's never been a time where someone hasn't come up to me at the end of a sermon or whatever it may be and hasn't said, "Thanks for saying that, because I deal with that too," or some of my family does.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to just understand that God loves us. He loves us just the way we are. So sometimes maybe someone who's maybe 20 something that's maybe not feeling close to God, well, you may not feel close to God, but he's never moved, right? He's always been right there.
Yeah.
And that just be patient, and he'll be there for you. And sometimes he rescues us out of those times too. Like he certainly rescued me. And I'm not saying, if he can rescue me, he can rescue anybody, because I'm not the most desperate of situations. And like I had a great upbringing and everything. But I think of, some situations, like you think of Darryl Strawberry, for example, you think of the turnaround he made in his life, the battles that he had to battle, and to see people like that overcome, but they use God, like God as an anchor, right? And that's the key, is having that as your anchor to overcome struggles.
The mess becomes your message. I
Yeah.
really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that you've said about your battling bipolar and that kind of stuff, your mess becomes your message. Do you find that your message continues to grow because of the stuff that you still battle on a regular basis?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I can relate to a wider segment of people, right? Like, none of us are perfect. We all have things that are going on.
Yeah.
But I think I can relate from a mental health perspective to maybe what a player or a person or a family member are going through, because I'm dealing with that.
Yeah, you live with it.
In the same way a friend of mine is diabetic, he can deal with friends that are diabetic, or whatever.
Yep.
And so I think that it just helps to allow you to relate to more people, especially now when we find out that mental health numbers of people that are consumers or should be consumers, and that they're trying to seek out help but they can't find help.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers are astronomical right now. So
Yeah.
So the
One
more
of
we
the
can help
one of the
people.
main topics that we talk to a lot of our guests about is mental health awareness, and it's crazy that everybody seems to have their story
Yeah.
of things that they deal with, and it's one of those topics that's touchy in a way, but in the same way, if more people talk about it, then people realize they're not on an island.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that necessarily about you, and thanks for
Yeah.
bringing that up, because it does take a lot of courage to say that
Yeah.
to somebody, because some people think it's admitting a weakness.
Mm.
But I do appreciate that you did. And it's just something that we've really, it's very close to our hearts. We'd like to discuss it with people. Did you, I'm not sure, I'm trying to figure out how to get into it without really opening up a can of worms. Your journey with depression or anxiety or bipolar, has that been something that's been throughout your life, before Christ, after Christ? Has that been a constant that you've had to, maybe one of the struggles, let's say, that you've had to deal with?
Yeah, like for me, I think when I was younger, in my 20s, I didn't realize that I even had any kind of mental health issues. I think I probably masked it with alcohol a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and but I didn't even know it at the time that I was. And I wasn't an alcoholic by any means, but just like weekends or after games, that kind of thing. And but then when I came to know the Lord, sometimes you think everything's going to be just right, but then I realized everything wasn't quite right, that there was still something that wasn't wrong. And I had started to, I praise God, I got a Christian psychiatrist that's been with me for 25 years.
Yeah.
And so I realized then, like, it was really helpful for me. Like I said, I was masking, I think I masked my depression or whatever with anxiety with alcohol. And praise God, when I came to know the Lord, I have no urge to drink anymore or anything like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, but I take medication to help me with my mental health, which I'm totally fine with. We have God created scientists to develop these medications, and it's okay to take them, in my opinion. And so it's okay to have a psychiatrist as well too,
Yep.
to help you. And so for me, I realized it as a young adult that I needed help. And so actually I took some counseling before I became a Christian, but it was just sort of, I had anxiety when I was working with Baseball Canada, and I couldn't quite pinpoint it, but I realized it was starting to get worse and worse.
Yeah.
And but then later on, but I'm so glad that I gave my life to the Lord, because it's been that plus having a good support team of doctors and my family and doctors, and having the Lord as my anchor has been huge. So yeah, so it's something that I didn't realize until I was in my, I guess, late 20s and then into my 30s, and and now like I said, my doctor's retiring, but if I found a new psychiatrist, and so that's good. So
yeah.
But yeah, I know it's good to.
It's always work, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's continue to work on yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because the more you work on yourself, the more you can progress and everything like that.
Yeah. Trying to be the best version of me that I can be, and the best version of Lorne Korol, not the best version of Gregg Stewart or whoever it may be.
Yeah.
You got to be yourself, right? And God has given us different things, and make the best of it, right? And think of the Apostle Paul, and 3 times he asked for whatever it was, to the affliction he had, and doesn't really say what the affliction was. I think of how many times I've asked God to, why do I have depression, or why,
Yeah.
why, but then I think maybe part of it is because I'm wired that way, so I can tell my story to people and be empathetic with people that maybe are battling with stuff too. So, so I think it becomes part of a platform to help other people too.
Yeah.
And really using that, and there's kind of a theological, this is where I'm talking about can of worms, but there's a theological debate of whether, we are quote unquote given something by God to help us. Let's say, I'm not saying I believe this, but some people would say that, you were given this ailment, just like Paul had this ailment that wouldn't be taken away from him, to help him teach better, to reach more people.
Right.
But to suggest that you had this, and this is not a good thing, like depression, anxiety, and bipolar is a horrible, horrible thing that you wish you didn't have.
Yeah.
And for someone to suggest that you were quote unquote given this to help you do your job better, I would assume is insulting in many ways.
I don't know if I would call it insulting, but it's maybe another take on it, to say they might be saying it like it can help us because we can relate to more people, and maybe we can do a little bit better job of relating to people. But yeah, I can see what you mean about the insulting part, because some people that don't have mental health issues don't understand, and you can tell that quite quickly in a conversation when they're giving you to sort of pull the bootstraps up kind of thing, and just snap out of it.
Say an extra prayer.
Yeah, say an extra prayer. Maybe not praying hard enough. And that's why my bride Heather, like she knows me so well, and she knows when I'm not feeling well, and she knows that I need love and care. Like it's not a matter of me, having us doing a couples devotional at that time necessarily, or something like that. And we do those things, but when I'm not feeling well, but at that time, sometimes you're sick that you don't feel like praying, you don't feel like reading the Bible. It's something that's the hardest thing to do sometimes when you're not feeling well, even though they're important to do.
Yeah.
But
Cues of a good spouse. I'm still learning those.
Yeah.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
So you've been married for how long?
We've been married 15 years.
15 years?
Yeah.
And you have how many children?
I have one daughter.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's married now.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And so she's married and
Lives in the city or elsewhere?
she's in the city too. She was a really good hockey player. She's a communications grad, and she's a proud Kitchener Ranger. She was a communications manager for Kitchener Rangers when she was out in Ontario.
Oh, cool.
And she attributes working in junior hockey to some of the talents that she has now. She works for the federal government in communications now. She just finished a stint with Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce as
Wow.
communications manager, and whenever she's been busy with her jobs, she says, "Dad, it's nothing like working in junior hockey when they're trying to run like an NHL operation with about half the staff and
and half the budget.
half the budget, and so you're wearing a
Not
few
even half
hats."
the budget, right?
So she's very, very talented,
Yeah.
far more talented than me. I'm really, her and her husband are both communications grads and are very, they do really well for themselves.
So they should be able to hash out their arguments, no problem.
Oh
right?
yeah, exactly. Can you
They're
imagine?
very good at communicating.
They should never get an argument, right? They're both,
Or they should have lots of arguments. One of the two.
that's right. One of the two.
Depends what kind of communication.
Right, exactly. Maybe they're good at business communications, but not the others, right? Yeah.
So
The last portion of our show
Yeah.
is a fun little portion that we
Okay.
do. It's called This or That.
Oh, okay.
So we give you two things that you can choose from. And from those two things, whichever one you pick, you wouldn't be able to have the other one anymore. Okay? So that's kind of the mindset
Okay.
that we want you to have.
I like it.
So you can pick one or the other, and we can just move on. Or if you want to elaborate, just feel free to elaborate on why you pick one or the other.
Okay.
So you don't have to elaborate on all of them. Some of them are pretty simple.
consider this the speed round.
Speed
However,
round,
I'm going to
okay.
start. I'm going to start with the last question first because the last question is not a this or that question.
Oh,
Okay.
The person, dead or alive, you would most want to have a 20-minute conversation with.
Jesus.
Okay.
Easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the cop-out answer
cop-out answer.
from a chaplain
So,
or a pastor.
yeah, if-
It can't be Jesus.
Okay.
Next.
But wait, no. Let's say Jesus is already with you,
Okay.
and you have to pick somebody else to speak with Jesus and you.
Oh boy. Someone dead or alive. I would say someone like if I went from I would say someone like Billy Graham. Like he's just amazing what the things that he did. But then just from a pure fan perspective,
Yeah.
like I'd say like Wayne Gretzky. I would love to.
Oh yeah.
talk
Billy
to
Graham
him.
and Wayne Gretzky, great answers.
Yeah.
I'll
With
take
Jesus.
it.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah,
With all
imagine-
four
But
of
as Greg correctly pointed out,
Yeah,
Jesus
yeah.
is always with us,
Yeah.
so you can't use that answer. It's like at the end of a message where you're falling asleep at church and the pastor asks you what the message was about, and you say love. That doesn't count.
Yeah,
Anyway.
exactly. Good
They're all
answer.
about
That's a
love.
great answer. Yeah.
All right, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
This is the speed round, and Tim has right and wrong answers for
Okay.
each one of them, so you might hear him comment.
Okay.
Apple or Android?
Android.
That's correct. Going to a beach resort or Europe?
Beach resort.
Beach resort. Also, maybe not. Let's see. Maybe that's 50-50. Pizza or pasta?
Pizza.
Pizza is that's correct. Sure. Would you rather meet the Pope or President of the United States?
Any president of the United States and any pope.
No.
I'd say,
Current
The
pope
current one.
and the current
I
president.
would say meet the Pope.
Pope. Okay.
Yeah.
Correct. Elvis or the Beatles?
Elvis.
Elvis, who, by the way, had a very good Christian career
Yes,
in a lot of
he
his
had
songs, by the way.
lot of gospel
A lot of people don't know a
upbringing,
lot of
yeah.
gospel songs.
Yeah.
Rock and roll or smooth jazz?
Rock and roll.
I could tell that already by looking at you. You look like a rock and roller.
Yeah.
Chips or chocolate?
Chips.
Chips. Like my wife. She loves her chips. Action movie or romantic comedy?
You know what? I like a rom-com.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. We were always looking for rom-coms. And your wife too?
Yeah, she likes rom-coms
Yeah?
too. We
Okay.
enjoy that.
Yeah.
That's the movie of choice when you guys
Yeah,
are going
we
through
like
Netflix.
those.
Let's
Yeah,
see
yeah.
which ones we get rom-coms.
Yeah, we want to watch that one coming up now, that the Fall Guy.
I just saw it.
You saw it was good?
Very good. Yeah,
Okay.
it's very, very good. It harkens back to the 80s and 90s.
Oh, good.
Where they don't take themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it's fairly clean. You'll like it.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
Canoe on a calm lake or climb a mountain?
I'm not good in a canoe water guy, and climb a mountain would not in the best of shape these days to climb a mountain, but I would say climb a mountain.
Okay. Some mountains aren't huge.
Yeah.
I'll take you up mountain sometime. Would you? This is a different question. Would you rather write a book or produce a movie?
Ooh. Probably write a book.
Write a book. There we go. Slurpee in the middle of winter or coffee on a hot day?
Slurpee in the middle of winter.
You are, of course, you are a Winnipegger. That's the science. All you have to do is ask that question. People know if you're from Winnipeg. Bombers or Jets?
Oh, I can't even answer that question because it depends on the season. How's that?
Nope. No.
Yeah.
Okay, he said Bombers. I'm going to answer for him. This is a live concert or live sporting event to attend?
Live sporting event.
Live sporting event. You are a chaplain of the sports team, so it makes sense. And infamous characters in Bomber history, Jeff Reinbold or Joe Mack?
Missed characters. Okay, well, they both had their moments. Well, I guess seeing Reinbold driving into the first press conference on a Harley was something else. So I'd say Jeff. But Jeff turned it around later on, and so I don't like to be too harsh. But he had his moments that year there. Yeah,
Jeff Reinbold. That was the correct answer, by the way. And that concludes our this or that cue, the this or that music. We don't have any. Okay.
Well, I really appreciate you joining us today. Did it fly by?
It flew by. I can't believe. Yeah, I was thinking when we started, I don't know how it's going to go, an hour and a half or whatever, but no, it flew by.
It happens to be the fact that both of us will talk, so you can't stop. Mm-hmm. So we'll eventually get something out of you.
Yeah.
Either way, but we really appreciate you coming onto the show today. This has been fantastic. And anybody that's watching today, you can see Lorne on the sidelines a lot of the times. Athletes in Action, we'll link below the Athletes in Action website as well. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share
all those good things.
All the fun things that Tim likes to do, because Tim...
I'm just thinking of asking about sideline passes for us.
If you haven't noticed, Tim's growing
sideline passes from Lorne.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time. Thanks again, Lorne. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Have a good day.
Honor and a blessing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for watching the Gregg and Tim Show podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. Sharing is caring.